it seems like my guess is coming true. We're going to talk about the metadata, not the data. Oh no. So you cannot do anything. That's so cucked. What is this? All right. Let's get into it.
Hello, guys and gals. Me, Mutahar. Today's a day where I think you can probably
Hi,
go into the
Mutar.
comment section and say "fuck Canada, boys," because things are getting pretty bad, especially when it comes to my privacy, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I don't know about you guys. You know, for me, it doesn't really matter where I live, but I am a proud Canadian person. I genuinely have spent my entire life here ever since I was a little
If you want, Sam, I'll do it. I'll share it.
baby. I was a man that grew up in the Great White North, and to be honest with you, it's just everywhere is a shit show. Now, I've been talking a lot about American, like, encryption.
How so? How is it a shit show? Like, seriously. How? This guy lives. This guy has gained so much from living here. He cannot even see it. You see, he is America brain right now. He is just like the standard American populace. His brain is not able to consider that if he lived in any other country on earth, he would literally be worse off.
Stuff, age verification shit. I wasn't really talking about a lot of shit that was happening back in Canada land. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got something known as Bill C-22. Now, what is Bill
Okay.
C-22, ladies and gentlemen? Bill
Yeah, what is it?
C-22 is the Canadian, what is that? What is that bullshit, guys? The Lawful Access Bill. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is one of the things that I've been teaching you about on this channel for years now? Taking care of your internet safety, your security, being safe against viruses, encrypting your dog shit on your computer, protecting yourself against the scary threats that are out there. Now, it seems like what the Canadian government wants to do is basically find a way to get some of these big tech companies to basically just open that little encryption for you a little bit. You know, basically let yourself be goat seed by the.
Okay. Right now he's saying that they're opening up the encryption. You know what? I'll let him yap.
Police. Now, of course, ultimately, there's only one rule when it comes to encryption and protecting yourself. You either give people full control over an encryption, or you just give them nothing at all. There's no half measures here, Walter. There's no half measures in this situation, okay? You either have it, or you don't. To give you a great example before we go further into it, a security guy was saying that Microsoft secretly has a backdoor into BitLocker. BitLocker, which is basically Microsoft's drive encryption, which keeps your laptop safe from prying eyes if it ever gets stolen, right? The data that you might have on it. Well, this individual was thinking, wait a minute, there has to be something behind it. There were some claims that were made, and obviously, this guy proved it by releasing a exploit known as YellowKey. YellowKey, which allows you to basically bypass, and again, these are the instructions that are provided, copy all of these files to a USB stick, put it into the computer that you have right in front of you, you can plug that stick in with the protections turned on, reboot to the recovery agent, and then you can basically enter commands that will allow you to access a system that you don't necessarily have permissions for. So basically, if you're a criminal in this case, forget the fucking government, well, congratulations, you just goat seed into somebody's computer, even with all those spooky protections everywhere. Now again, I don't know if Microsoft left this backdoor in for like the FBI or something. That would be an insane claim
It would be.
to make, but it's hard not to look at this in that light. So anyways, let's talk about.
No, it's not hard, okay? It's really not hard. It's not hard to think that Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom, has left a way for some part of the system to de-encrypt part of the disk, and that maybe if this was badly implemented, that it could be taken over and essentially decrypt something that it's not supposed to, leading to fully decrypting the disk. Okay? This is pretty easy to think about without going to FBI, without going to all the conspiracy. We can just, like, easily go through this. Doesn't have to be a conspiracy here.
About what's going on with Canada's Bill C-22, okay? What the fuck is going on the Canadian side that we're
what's
turning into
going
like a fascist regime overnight? So basically, the
You see how good this guy has it? Russia is currently taking everyone they can, vanning them to the fucking Ukrainian border. Sorry, F word again. And essentially telling them, either you kill them all or you die. And we're out here talking about fascism because of a law that hasn't even been passed yet. And that if we go and read it, we will probably find that it doesn't even say what you say.
The bill here amends the criminal code to facilitate access to basic information that will assist in the investigation of federal offenses through confirmation of service demands given to telecommunication service providers or judicial production orders for the production of subscriber information. So again, this is mostly for, again, the government to access information through, again, I would assume to be court order in this case, right? Expedite the response of production orders by shortening the review process and clarify the ability of peace officers and public officers to receive and act on certain information that is voluntarily provided to them and to obtain and act on information that is publicly available. Specify certain circumstances in which peace officers may obtain evidence, including subscriber information, in exigent circumstances. Now again, like many laws, it's very long and filled with vague fucking language, which is rightfully called out.
No. 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 Everyone that says that hasn't read a law in their life. Laws are always pretty obvious when you read them. And even better, in Canada, we even have some parts that says, hey, this law is there for this specific reason. This is the goal. So him saying this, like, to me, it just shows that he's transparently saying that he never read a law. His job is yapping. He has it very good. I'm happy for him. But he should be thankful more often, is my thought. Well, the problem is that the reason why the US has Donald Trump is because you have so many of these people, right? If you didn't have a Joe Rogan, if you didn't have these type of dipshits, I need to be family friendly. If you didn't have all of these people in your media, essentially just poking again and again and again your government and how it works and the institutions and every good thing that you do. If you didn't have these people, you wouldn't have Trump. And here this guy is trying to do the same with my country. So right now, I'm pretty pissed.
Out by a lot of privacy groups, right? For instance, Bill C-22 erodes the privacy of millions by providing a mechanism for the Minister of Public Safety to demand companies creating a backdoor to their services to provide the cops access to data, as long as these mandates don't introduce a systemic vulnerability. These widespread surveillance backdoors would likely facilitate even more data breaches than we see already. Like I showed you with the BitLocker shit, and again, of the millions of hacks that we've covered, okay?
If we go and read the bill,
backdoor into your personal life, simply for the government to keep you safe, usually, okay?
The fact that he didn't read that part is fun. The definition of both systemic vulnerabilities and encryption are not clear enough in C-22, leave wiggle room for the government to demand that companies circumvent encryption. I wonder.
Having a fucking backdoor into your personal life simply for the government to keep you safe usually ends up with a fucking giant security nightmare for criminals to take advantage of, right? So again, ultimately right over here, the definitions of systemic vulnerabilities and encryption are not clear enough in C-22, leaving wiggle room for the government to demand the companies circumvent encryption. And the overbroad definitions in the bill can include apps as well as operating systems. Canadian officials have made it clear that they believe it's possible to add surveillance without introducing systemic vulnerabilities, which is not true. Like I said, okay, I'm not somebody that works for the fucking government, but I do know how computer protections work. I do understand how encryption works, down to its mathematical sense. The reality of it is you can either have none of it or you can have all of it, okay? That's just how it works.
Why is he not reading the bill? Why is he reading a
or you give people enough protections that ultimately no criminal, and also by extension, no cop should be able to bypass it. It's one of the reasons why I use a Graphene OS phone, not because I'm quirky or I want to be against the grain. It's simply because I actually do have a lot of worthwhile assets that I want to protect. Assets like my YouTube channel. It's one of the reasons why, I'm not, knock on wood, of course, but obviously it's one of the reasons why I've never really been hacked on my YouTube channel, because I tend to keep everything so air-gapped, isolated, and behind really secure devices, really secure systems that I don't worry about it. For instance, even on my main computer, that computer back there, I'm not actually signed into my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel's access is so limited.
Okay, he's yapping. Let's go see what C-22 is. Okay, not the gun, please. Thank you. Okay, so we're at the second reading. So we're not that far, but it's going fast as usual with Carney, and that's a great thing. So Bill C-22, an act respecting lawful access. Her Excellency, the Governor General, recommends to the House of Commons the appropriation of public revenue under the circumstances in the manner and for the purpose set out in the measure entitled An Act Respecting Lawful Access. Okay, summary. Part 1 amends various acts to modernize certain provision respecting the timely gathering and production of data and information during an investigation. It, amongst other things, amend the criminal code to, amongst other things, facilitate access to basic information that will assist in the investigation of federal offense through confirmation of demands given to telecommunication service providers or judicial production orders for the production of subscriber information. I'm getting torrent app on my phone, so we can. Oh, I can probably just send it over by Google Drive. That's probably the simplest way. No, I don't do torrent normally, but hey, if I have to learn to, I'll do it. Expedite the response to production order by shortening the review process and clarifying the ability of peace officers and public officers to receive and act on certain information that is voluntarily provided to them and obtain and act on information that is publicly available. 3. Specify certain circumstances in which peace officer and public officer may obtain evidence, including subscriber information, in exigent circumstances. 4. Allow a justice or judge to authorize in a warrant a peace officer or public officer to obtain tracking data or transmission data that relates to anything that is similar to a thing in relation to which data is authorized to be obtained under a warrant and that is unknown at the time the warrant is issued. All right, we'll go for torrent then. Provide and clarify authorities by which computer data may be examined and allow a justice or judge to authorize a peace officer to make a request for foreign entity that provides telecommunication services or that provides services by means of telecommunication to the public to produce transmission data or subscriber information that is in its possession or control. Okay, let's start with this. Let's start by TLDRing what this is. So here, when we're talking about production of subscriber information, I'm sure we can go, you know what? We probably can. Can we have access to this? Subscriber information. What we're going to find is there's a definition for this. Subscriber information in relation to any client of a person who provides services to the public or any subscriber to the services of such a person means information that may be used to identify the subscriber or client, including their name, pseudonym, address, telephone number, and email address. Identifiers assigned to the subscriber or client by the person, including account number and information relating to the services provided to the subscriber or client, including the type of services provided, the period during which the services were provided, and information that identifies the device, equipment, or thing used by the subscriber or client in relation to the services. Oh man, it sounds like here we're not actually trying to look at the data itself, but we're just trying to know if the account is linked to a person or if a person has an account. I wonder if we're going to find that nothing will touch the data. And it will all be about metadata and identifying a subscriber, because this is already in the law. Fucking idiot. All right. Transmission data. Let's check the definition. You'll see how easy this is. This is remotely so dumb. Okay, can I have the definition for this? I probably skipped it. Oh man, let's use Google for this one. Canadian law. Oh man, is this literally a description of the thing? Oh man, how cool. Oh man, they're saying... Okay, we're reading that afterward. Okay, yes or no question. Only police could not obtain detail about individual, transmission, or evidence. Okay, so they can only have a confirmation if yes or no someone is using the thing. Okay. Yeah, but I want the definition of this. Could I know? Shoot. I'm trying to skip steps here. Criminal code. Oh. Transmission data means data that relates to the telecommunication function of dialing, routing, addressing, or signaling. B. Is transmitted to identify, activate, or configure a device, including a computer program as defined in subsection 342.1 parentheses 2, in order to establish or maintain access to a telecommunication services for the purposes of enabling a communication, or is generated during creation, transmission, or reception of a communication, and identifies or purports to identify the type, direction, date, time. Did I say type? Okay, type, direction, date, time, duration, size, origin, destination, or termination of the communication, and does not reveal the substance, meaning, or purposes of the communication. Oh man. Oh man. It seems like my guess is coming true. We're going to talk about the metadata, not the data. Oh no. Oh no. Some group is trying to have money because they're going to say that everything the government does is bad. Oh no. We're going to buy it because we don't actually read the law. Oh no. You know what? Let's go read this. Let's go do the dumb thing, which is just read the thing, okay? Oversights and privacy. The Act proposed new tools to address the Supreme Court of Canada's decision in R.V. Spencer and R.V. Bykovet that obtaining basic information requires lawful authority. The proposed tool would require that the police explains how the information they seek relates to a crime and whether the information will help the investigation. 1. New investigative tools. Law enforcement has been clear. They need better tools to disrupt and combat crime in the digital age. At the same time, we need to make sure that Canadians' privacy is protected. The Act would help law enforcement investigate threats earlier, act quickly in urgent situations, and confirm whether someone is using a service relevant to an investigation, so they can take the lawful steps needed to protect victims and respond to imminent threat. Two new tools, the confirmation of services demand and the subscriber information production order, address the long-standing gap in the investigative toolkit. These two new tools would not enable law enforcement to conduct warrantless search of personal information. Oh man. We're going down the fascism lane, oh my god. Hey, man. Confirmation of service demand. The confirmation of service demand would allow police to quickly determine if a telecommunication provider, which includes internet service provider, has information that will assist in the investigation of an offense. This is a key starting point to allow police to seek other authorities, such as the General Production Order, a court order tool that allows police to lawfully obtain higher levels of private information, including emails, text message, photos, etc. The confirmation of services demand The confirmation of services demand only allow police to confirm a service. It is a yes or no question. Current law. Law enforcement must rely on voluntary confirmation from service providers? What? I mean, in the US, I'm sure that you have, like, real enforcement there. That sounds insane. If service providers do not voluntarily provide the information, the only recourse law enforcement agencies have is to seek a court order to obtain this information. Without knowing whether a service provider has information in its possession, this may not be possible. So that means that, let's say you have someone like torrenting kitty porn. Maybe that's not the best way to say it, okay? But torrenting things that you shouldn't torrent, okay? Like, they could not even... That means we have, like, 4, like, ISPs in Canada. So they would need... Well, they couldn't do anything because your request must be narrow when it's inside of a court order. So you cannot do anything. That's so cucked. What is this? Proposed amendment. Create a specific tool that provides lawful authority to make a confirmation of services demand to allow police to determine if a service provider may have information that will assist in the investigation of an offense. Once the police have confirmation that the service provider may have information, they can then take the necessary investigative steps, including applying for a court to obtain a production order for the information in the possession of the service provider. For example, the confirmation of services demand would allow the police to determine if a phone number associated with a fraud offense is serviced by a Canadian telecommunications company. If the company confirms that yes, they service the number, police can seek a production order from a judge for the company to identify the owner of the number. So you're telling me that they still have to have a judge sign at the end of all this? So right now they can only know if you're using a service. Oh, and that's fascism, my friend. Whew. We're all going to die in fiery hell. Nice one, Mutahar. Since the Supreme Court of Canada in decision RV Spencer 2014, telecommunication provider generally only provide information if served with a court order. If law enforcement cannot identify who holds the relevant information, how would they? They may not be able to obtain production order because knowing the holder of the information is a necessary precondition. Yes, right? You cannot, okay. Maybe this is like niche insight into how courts work, but when you have a court order for a thing, court order are extraordinary things. You're not supposed to spam them. You're not supposed to be able to use them on large things. It's supposed to be like, we need this little thing, and we target it very precisely. And the court order will say, okay, it's for a legitimate purpose. It is narrow. Then we give the yay, okay? If it's not that, we give the nay. But how would you be able to have that narrow condition if you cannot even know which provider provided the request. You're just stuck. This is insane. Okay, we understand this point. Subscriber Information Production Order. The Subscriber Information Production Order would be a narrower version of the General Production Order that already exists in the Criminal Code. A General Production Order is a court order that requires a third party who holds a certain type of data or document, for example, email, text message, photos, banking record, invoices, logbooks, to deliver copies of this material to the police within a specified period. The Subscriber Information Production Order would only permit the police to obtain basic identifying information provided by the subscribers to a service provider, such as name, address, and email linked to a particular account. As this tool only gives police access to information that is less privacy intrusive, its threshold is lower than a general production order. The police would need to have a reasonable suspicion and production order in the criminal code. I've skipped a line. Shit. The police would need to have a reasonable suspicion, and the subscriber production order would need to be authorized by a judge. So we still need a judge to do that. Okay, cool. This is similarly to other narrowly focused production order in the criminal code. Just to be clear, we're talking about a new thing here, right? So the thing above is a yes or no question. Here we're trying to de-anonymize the person. So yeah. This is similar to other narrowly focused production order in the criminal code, such as the production order for tracking data, which allows police to access a person's location history. Current law enforcement will obtain general production order from the court to obtain subscriber information, which can take time, because the bigger the request, right, the more like things you're asking for, the bigger the onus is on you to give a valid reason for what you're doing, right? So if you're trying to know like the emails of the person, it's going to be crazy hard. And the fact that we're essentially using the same tool for knowing like if a person is even a subscriber of a thing, or if a person, or like to know all the emails of that person if possible. Like that's insane. I'm happy that they are fixing this. Create a new narrower court order to allow law enforcement to seek subscriber information from a service provider. Subscriber information includes the name, telephone number, address, and email that is linked to an account. Why is this needed? Since the Supreme Court of Canada decision in R.V. Spencer 2014, the General Production Court Order has been the only tool available to the police to obtain subscriber information. A General Production Order is designed for information with the highest privacy impact, which can take time to get. The proposed new tool reflects the reduced privacy interest in obtaining subscriber information for a person of interest in a criminal investigation. Cool. Is there anything else that I care about? Are you kidding me? No way. Obtaining information that is already publicly available. In the digital age, there is a lot of information on the web that anyone can access, such as contact information on the public web, on a public website. Police need to be able to use publicly available information from online places in their investigation in the same way they currently use what is already publicly available in the physical world, such as an address from a public phone book or a business card. Current law. There is currently some confusion around the law enforcement ability to use publicly available information without going to court to obtain authorization. Proposed amendment. Clarify the that law enforcement officials are not required to obtain court approval to obtain this information. Thank Lord. What is this? emergency exigent circumstance. Canadian criminal law has long recognized that in emergency situation, police officers may act without first obtaining a court order where one would otherwise be required. For example, an online live stream of a terrorist attack or essay of a child where law enforcement must act immediately. Current law. Law enforcement does not have a clear ability to seize digital information in an emergency situation without court approval. Law enforcement can already seize physical evidence in emergency circumstance without prior court authorization. Proposed amendment. Authorize police, as affirmed in R.V. Spencer and other Supreme Court cases, to seize specific type of information, be it physical or digital, in emergency situations, exigent circumstance, such as a terrorist attack. Why is this needed? Emergency circumstance justify police action to prevent serious injury, death, or action in response to an immediate danger of the loss, removal, disappearance, or destruction of evidence. This would codify the common law power of police to act in emergency situations where third-party holders have information critical to an investigation or a real-time intervention, for example, kidnapping or terrorist attack. Okay, let's read the safeguard on this one. I'm interested. Safeguard. Review process. As is currently the case, the court would continue to have the ability to review the lawfulness of police action in exigent circumstance. The court can review the use of emergency circumstance after the act and impose strong consequences if they find that the exception was abused. These consequences include not allowing the information collected under the Emergency Circumstances Clause to be used in court, dismissing the case or charge, judicial finding of the police misconduct or abuse of process and internal discipline. In line with current law, police authority to obtain certain evidence in exigent circumstances has been recognized by the Supreme Court of Canada. Like, this is obvious, right? If you're a police and you think that there is someone, a kid, getting beaten the hell up at the back of a house, you're not going to just walk away, right? Everybody agree that you have the authority to just, like, if it is an obvious thing, you have the authority to just walk in, okay? This is a thing that we all agree on. So, yeah, I'm all in to make it clear that there's no, like, magic thing for the digital era that makes it so that it doesn't exist. Okay, so I guess we can also ask for internationally to do the same, which is good. You're going to need to summarize this for the audience. Okay, let's summarize all of this, right? So right now, the whole law and its safeguards. Okay, so right now, let's outline how the law currently works. So on the book, how it works for a law officer, okay, someone that is there to rule the law, okay, he's there to impose the law on you, how it works. So if you know, let's take like a ring of PDF files, okay? A bunch of PDF files. We don't like the PDFs, okay? They are bad file format. So if you have a ring of these people and you want to know where they are, you want to try to de-anonymize them, you know that they're like within Canada, but you don't have other information than that. Well, right now, you cannot. There is no way for you to seek these information without having like divinely get some information in another way. So by that I mean that they cannot directly go to the ISPs. They cannot say, okay, we have these address. Tell us if they fit within like your range of address. Tell us if you have any information about them. Tell us if you have these name as clients. You cannot do that as a police officer right now. It's not something that you can do. Because what you're going to need when you go to the judge, because you need to go to the judge to have a warrant for these things, you're going to need to narrowly focus your warrant. A warrant cannot say, well, the guy might be over there. I don't know. He's somewhere in there. You cannot do that in a warrant. In a warrant, you need to say the person is exactly here. And right now, because we have multiple ISPs, we cannot say that it's exactly here. We don't know. Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? We don't know. So first thing that it changed is it allows us, the police that is, to ask a very simple question, which is this guy, or is this IP, or is this specific person part of your network? Are they transacting things on your ISP, right? So if I'm an ISP and I receive that request from a police officer, and by the way, the police officer still has to go to a judge, right? It's just that the onus is now way lesser, right? So the police officer would have to show that there is a reasonable possibility of bad things happening linked to this specific person or this specific IP. So they could go and ask each ISP now, and we could have, let's say ISP 1, let's call it ISP 1. Maybe ISP 1 will say, hey, that's one of my clients. Now that the police has this information, what they can do is they can go back to a judge and they can ask the judge, hey, I now know that this ISP has some information for me. Now, I don't know the nature of that information. I have no clue what they have, but I know that they're their client. So now I can request, and this is a new type of thing that didn't exist before, I can request a specific type of search, which is a search of essentially transmission data. So transmission data is there to show when packets were transferred, when someone connected to an account, when a device was connected to a specific thing. It doesn't show what the data is within the packets, right? You don't see what the person sent. You only see when they sent something and like where within what time frame. You see the metadata. So we now have access. Again, a judge looks at this, so you cannot just go fishing expedition like a madman. So now you can ask the judge, hey, I want to have that transmission data. I want to have that metadata. And now you would be able to do a request where you, oh my God, we have de-anonymized. We now know that this IP, this specific, this is not a real IP that you could have. So, okay, this specific IP is a PDF. And now we can translate IP to person. Wow, magical. And now we can start doing way more thing than we could before, because before at the start, this first step of asking each ISP was impossible. You needed to somehow know the ISP that was managing this and to be able to like prove it within a court of law in order to like, this is an insane threshold for a police investigation to stoop through, right? It's dumb. So now we can de-anonymize these IP. So that's one thing that now exists, which will allow to kind of have a small step that allows to have a real result at the end. That doesn't require you to have some information that are essentially impossible to have from most investigations. So that's one thing. And the second thing that we well, that's technically two things, right? So there's this part that's the yes or no, and after that there's the de-anonymization part. So those are two things. And the last thing that we talked about was the we could say like the well, they use exigent circumstance. I don't know how to write this, okay? Exigent circumstance. So exigent circumstance. What does that mean? Okay, so in law, in English law, this is true everywhere that the English, okay, is settled. If there is some crazy circumstance that is happening, so let's say that someone is destroying evidence. Let's say that someone is actively burning down a house. Let's say that someone is doing something crazy and you need to stop them, or else there's going to be unmitigatable damage that will happen. You can act as a police officer. You're not there waiting for a warrant while this kid gets killed at the back of a house because you just cannot enter the house. Oh my God. No, of course not. You're going to enter the house, and we need to have some kind of legal, we could say, excuse for this behavior, right? Everybody accepts that whenever there's something that is like we facially see that there's an issue, we should be able to jump into action and do something. Now, the issue is that this doesn't exist in the digital age. See ya, Sam. We're going to do a torrent somehow, okay? I'll find out and I'll send you a link. So whenever you see something happen, right now in the digital age, there was no way for you to act. There was no backing from the law that was coming out and saying, hey, if there's something crazy happening on the internet, let's say that you have somebody like filming somebody like killing kids. Well, YouTube monetization gone. Okay. It never was there in the first place. But like, if you have that happen, there was no tool in the tool set that was there to help you. You needed to have a warrant. You needed to go through all the crazy oops that you normally would. Now, here what they're saying is that you might act in ways as a police officer in extraordinary ways, right? Normally, you would not rely on some dumb evidence on the internet in order to go somewhere and act something. But here we're saying, look, it is clear that sometimes there are some exigent circumstances where you should act on things that you see on the internet without having like an actual clear warrant for what you're doing, or like sometimes it is just reasonable to see a guy about to nuke a city and to stop him from nuking the city. So this is a good thing to see. So here, let me come back to Mutahar here. This is disgusting, right? This guy essentially read 2 articles and is now the world-leading expert on how encryption, it's either working or it's not working. I wonder, you know what? Let's go one step further. If I write encryption, what will I find in here? You know what? Let's go. Okay, electronic protection means authentication, encryption, and any other prescribed type of data protection. Okay, where is that used? Systemic vulnerabilities means a vulnerability in the electronic protection of an electronic service that creates a substantial risk that secure information could be accessed by a person who does not have the right or authority to do so. Okay. And where do we use this? Systemic vulnerability. A core provider is not required to comply with a provision of a regulation made under subsection 2 with respect of to an electronic service if compliance with that provision would require the provider to introduce a systemic vulnerability related to that service or prevent the provider from rectifying such a vulnerability. So you're telling me that it is written in the law that if what we're asking requires you to break encryption, we don't want you to do it? And he is literally yelling, are you kidding me? I don't know. I'm becoming Michael Jackson right now. What are we talking about? No. Oh, no way. I don't know what to do. I don't know. This is next level. Like, what are we talking about here? Bro. Oh yeah, go and sell. Oh my god, our government or shit, bro. I don't know, this needs to stop. Like, this is the worst in this is that this won't be addressed, right? So we're going to see this guy just fly on. If I were to make a mistake like this, I've got 2 viewers. And I would still be ashamed. I would make a retraction. I've been wrong on like one little thing as an half joke in a discussion with Stan. And I've literally called myself out the next day. This guy has no shame. Like, there should be shame. There needs to be shame. This is an insane level of lies.